Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for spending some time with us this evening as we officially kick off and launch the GLAGjr supplemental program for GLAG22. We hope to really kind of show you what has all been created for you. We have members of our action team that are going to help kind of paint the picture of the opportunities that are here for you and your classroom to further bring GLAG to your students. With that, we'll start off with some quick introductions and then get into the details of what GLAGjr can offer. So my name is Darla Rumberger. I'm an agricultural science teacher at Cumberland Valley High School in Pennsylvania in the United States. I've been involved with GLAG for a few years, so I'm excited to step into the role as program manager. With us this evening, we also have our interns for GLAGjr. We have Swarelli, so if you want to give a wave there. She was really instrumental in putting a lot of the modules together and will be your main point of contact for the program. We also have another intern, Cheyenne Bastian Brown. She's unfortunately able not to be with us this evening, but she will also be helping with those badging assessments. So you will see her name pop up quite a few times as well. We have a phenomenal group of educators and industry representatives that serve on our action team. So we'd like to welcome Dr. Rhonda Ham from Corteva. She is the Global Academic Relations Leader for that company, and she'll be telling you more about the grant program that Corteva is supporting. We also have Miss Katie Rank. She's an agricultural science teacher from Southeast Pennsylvania. Other members of our action team include Cinda Murray. She's a science teacher from Northwest Pennsylvania, and Dvorak, an industry representative from Nebraska. And then we also have Kate McCann, a STEM educator from Vermont. So those individuals have really helped us forge this program forward and adding some new value-added components that could be meaningful for your classrooms. Without any further ado, we are going to jump into what GLAG actually is. So if you have any questions, we're going to save those for a Q&A portion, and then we'll make an FAQ document to be shared out with the rest of the group. So I guess the first question that we really want to answer tonight is, what is GLAGjr? What opportunities are there? How are you going to use this within your classroom or within your student organization? So I'm going to preface this by saying at the end of this presentation in our exhibitor space on Whova, there is going to be an entire Google folder of educator resources, links, etc. So everything that you're seeing here, don't think you need to go searching any further for it, because we'll share it just at the end of this presentation. So I am going to start sharing and kind of reference what this educator folder looks like, so we have a frame of reference for the future. So first in here, you will have a master document that kind of walks through some different timelines and things like that. But I think for simplicity, I would really like to start with a visual that is going to show you the different modules that we have available for this year. We have our modules divided up into 3 levels. So at the foundational level, there are kind of like the basics of what you need to teach your students with global competence, introducing these sustainable development goals, what is food security, and again, that's kind of our connection to agriculture and why it's important to bring these topics into your classroom. And then you'll move up to the challenge level. So these are meant to be a little more in depth, really get your students analyzing some situation-based learning, applying things to what's happening in your community and making those global connections. And finally, the master level contains a module that is thematic based on what the theme for GLAG is in that year. So with that being said, these are meant to be interactive modules. We'll take you to that platform in a second here, but it's really designed that you kind of start out with your students at that foundational level. So the order that they are listed in there, food security is a really good one to start out with, then moving into introducing the SDGs, global competence, and our one of our new modules this year is Life Below Water, referencing specifically SDG 14. And the work of this year's Food Prize laureate. And then the other new module for this year is the Reaching Out at the master level. So again, we're trying to really switch things up. And if you've done GLAGjr with us in the past, you will see 2 new modules available for you. And if you're just starting out with GLAGjr, again, fresh content ready to go, and then you can build it in as you need to within your classroom. So what does this actually look like? Back in our resources, as a teacher, you will have access to a list of all of the GLAG Junior modules that are available for this year. And we give them to you just as a web link, as my internet is loading here. So you have access to these. Again, you kind of can pick which topic relates to your curriculum first. Again, the recommendation is starting at that foundational level, so those topics can feed into those higher levels. But you can actually take this link, you can preview it for yourself as an educator. I drop this link into my learning management platform, and then students are quickly directed to that interactive module. So I have our new one for this year ready to go on another tab. So if you would click that link, this is the landing page that your students are brought to. Again, you can get a quick overview of what the objectives are. So you can kind of know, is this appropriate, or does it kind of vary from what my original plans were? And then you can see an outline and then how many parts exist for the module. Your students, there's no login needed. I think that's a huge plus. So it's one less login that your students need. They can come back to this as many times as they'd like to, but in order to get to those, I go ahead and hit start course. And then it's a pretty user-friendly format that you'll be able just to kind of scroll through here. There is like an introduction section. So the first module that your students complete, we are kind of making a global Padlet. So it kind of tracks your location, and then students from around the globe are able to see where your classroom is and kind of forge some of those connections using that geographical tie. And you can navigate over at the bottom to move to the next part, or you could navigate from the left-hand side just to keep moving forward. Okay, I'm not going to steal Swarelli's thunder talking about some materials that we have to help guide you and your students through this module. So with that being said, I think I'm going to jump back to this educator resources folder, just so you can kind of see that this is here. This will be posted in our exhibitor space on Whova. Okay, so again, just want to reiterate that this will be available to you. And one of the resources in that folder is going to be a tool that you can use to help your students navigate through those modules and really track their progress. So at this point, I am going to turn it over to Swarelli to talk about some of those resources we've created to go along with GLAG Junior, and then badging.
Thank you, Ms. Romberger, for explaining the badging hierarchy and introducing us to the modules for 2022. A key resource that we provide with the modules is an adventure guide. The adventure guide are a collection of writing prompts, fill in the blanks, and matching activities embedded throughout the Articulate 360 modules. These activities are meant to help students actively participate and interact with the content at their own pace and retain essential background information of the topics, which they'll need for the badging assessment. They're also meant to help educators in that the activities are ready to use materials that supplement the content, which means you can simply plug the materials and plug the modules into your lesson plans without needing to do any extra work. Educators can either use a printed version or a digital version of the adventure guide, which is on Google Slides, to give out to their students. Most educators recommend using the digital version because they can suggest edits and include comments directly onto the slide, which immediately notifies the students. The adventure guide will be included in the educator resource packet, which we will send out at the end of the session. At the end of the modules, in Articulate 360, the last section is a badging assessment that tests the students on the knowledge they have learned from the modules. To earn badges for those modules, students must earn at least an 80% or higher on their badging assessment. Then every Friday, a GLAG Junior intern like myself or Cheyenne will check the badging assessment submissions. We will email those students' educators with the students' results. The email to the educator will include a list of students who passed and did not pass the badging assessment for each module they completed that week. And now I will hand it off to Miss Ham to talk about the grant opportunities.
So hi, everyone. So we really wanted to take this learning to the next level and really give students the opportunity to implement their ideas. So it's about learning, but then also about putting that learning to practical use in your communities. And so we are proud to sponsor the GLAG Junior Grant Program. And so there are $500 grant opportunities for teams that have completed certain requirements. And so those requirements really are around the badging that's previously been talked about. So your student groups have to be at least 2 students. One student has to have earned all of the 4 foundational badges, as well as a challenge level badge and the master level badge for them to be eligible for the grants. So all the students have to earn at least 4 foundational badges, and 1 member has to complete the challenge level and master's level badges. So those are kind of the requirements. The funding cycle for these will be on a quarterly basis. So the deadlines will vary. This particular year in 2022, those deadlines will be April 15th, July 15th, October 15th, and January 15th. So those are opportunities. So if you know, depending on where you are in your curriculum and it doesn't fit right now, we give you the flexibility to put that in where it makes sense so that you're not trying to make something that doesn't flow well into your classroom. So that is kind of, there is also a document. So the application will be fairly short, 15 questions. And let me share my screen so I can show you what those questions look like on the application. So this is what the application looks like. There are 15 questions, just name, you know, the educator, the group members, the title, proposed project, an itemized budget is important, what community needs you're going to address, etc. So this is what that will look like. That is required for the grant applications. So there's a whole document that will be on the site that Darla recommended earlier that talks about this and talks you through what those requirements are, and how to apply and when to apply in the deadlines. So with that, I will stop sharing and pass it on to the next speaker.
Wonderful. As mentioned, my name is Katie Rank, and I teach in Southeastern Pennsylvania. I'm an agriculture teacher and a grassland FFA advisor. My Agriculture 2 class had the opportunity to apply for the GLAG Junior Grant. And to provide you this example, I just want to share a little bit about my class and the demographics and how it's set up so you can have the full context of it. So my Agriculture 2 class is a 2nd level course, and it is taught on a block schedule in the spring. So we're together for 18 weeks for approximately 80 minutes every day. The class is made up of typically 10th and 11th graders, and most of them have a passion for agriculture, so it's typically a pretty driven group, typically a small group as well. The class size average is about 10 to 15 students. The spring that we applied for the grant, the class was only 6 students, and so I made this project really intimate, and it also made it very personable for the group because they were able to really all draw in on their strengths and their passions to be able to write it, apply for it, and go through that process. So the event that we applied for was a hunger banquet. Prior to this, our students and our FFA chapter hosted our first hunger banquet the year before. So we had 1 year of experience under our belt. And one of the biggest reasons that we applied for it was the money. And it was, it's an expensive event to host. And so there was a driving factor behind that. But it also was a community-based event. And we had a lot of interest from that first year. And so our students said, how can we make it bigger, better? But no, we need the financial backing. And then the other piece was, we don't necessarily understand the content that we're teaching about the hunger banquet, which was really the global agriculture part. So what I really like about this grant is that it provides, GLAG Junior provides the avenue of the context and the content to make the students successful with the grant writing. So I bring that up to really emphasize that the knowledge and the background knowledge is going to equate to the success of your grant. So in working with 10th and 11th grade students and using the word grant, most of them look at you like, what is a grant? So it was really neat to be able to start after we went through GLAGjr. It was neat to be able to start with what is a grant? Where are other grant opportunities in life? What has our particular ag program FFA written, and what supplies have we received through grants? So we're able to talk about that process. Then we talked and looked at different examples of grants, and I just pulled some ones that I wrote and some from the beginning of my teaching career and ones towards the latter part. And we were able to look at what was good languaging, what was the rubric requiring, and how did it align? So there's definitely some upfront teaching with that. And most of the kids were really excited about the event, but maybe not so much the writing part, which if you work with high schoolers, you might understand that a little bit. So what we did with a group of 6 is we broke it out and we looked at the application and we said, okay, which parts do we need to research and answer first? And then what parts can we do later? And then who has strengths in budgeting, who has strengths in interviewing the coordinators of the event from the prior year, and then who has strengths in writing. And so with the small group, we're able to divide and conquer that out. We put it on a Google Doc and we're able to share that. And when the grant was all filled out, we actually sent it over to our English department, as well as our assistant superintendent, who was able to provide the students feedback. And so they could get a little bit of the professional feedback before we sent that on. We were one of the first groups, I believe, for GLAGjr grants. So at that time, it was when you're done, you send it in and you waited for the results. We were granted that, and then due to the COVID-19 pandemic, unfortunately, our event was postponed. But I know that 3 of those 6 are students that continued in the program and were very active. And 2 of the 3 of them actually wrote grants through the FFA this past year as seniors, and were awarded grants because of that process. And they were able to better understand it. And then I've also utilized them as coaches for students applying for other grants. And then I will bring them back into my Ag 2, which I'm currently teaching, and have them work on this grant process. So there's a lot of nice pieces as far as professional writing skills, being very clear and concise. Those of you that work within the FFA organization, I've also utilized it for the Ag Communications LDE competition. And the last year that we looked at it, I utilized some of those writing documents to talk about writing skills, professional technical writing. So there's a really nice alignment there, as well as working on the digital portfolio. You can utilize some of your resources and information you learn for that competition. So there's a nice tie into that as well.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing, Katie. I think a lot of times we kind of see a grant, and again, it's kind of interesting to get your students thinking about like connections to their community, but that is the purpose of the modules, is to really spark that connection and then really take action on something that is local and relevant within your community. So I will also say, in like those educator resource files that are there, it's our hope to continue building and growing those each year. So right now there's like a sample grant report that was provided from some past grant awardees. So we hope that some ideas are there, and that may spark some connections to what you could do in your own classes or program. So with that being said, we have covered a lot of ground in the past 20 minutes. So in a quick summary, we introduced you to the modules that are available for this year. That badging hierarchy image will be really helpful for you to kind of see the big picture of everything that GLAGjr offers, and then you can decide where you'd like to start. Secondly, Sorelli talked about the badging opportunities. So it's kind of cool to see where your students are at in completing these the modules that have been developed. And as Katie just shared, those badges can lead into a grant opportunity. So it is kind of a program that is built on that incentive to actually go and apply what you've learned through them. But again, useful to supplement any curriculum that you have. And as Katie shared, it's really versatile. You can use it however it fits within what you've planned for your current structure. So to wrap up here, we do kind of hope to keep the momentum going over the next couple of months. And we do want to have monthly check-ins. So just shout outs for programs that are doing awesome things, If you have pictures of your students engaged in the modules, if you have ideas for grants, we kind of want to use the Whova space that's been created specifically. There's a thread just of comments and things like that, but also that exhibitor booth area. And we are going to treat that exhibitor booth as our landing hub. So as soon as we get off of this Zoom call, that educator folder will be live. We will post it there for you. And we really hope to see people jumping into these modules and kind of planning out where it can fit into your curriculum in the coming weeks. So with that, please make sure that you are checking back into that Whova space. Pay attention. We're going to try to get some messaging going, just to kind of providing you with reminders of deadlines. Again, shout outs for groups that are doing some awesome things within GLAGjr, and really just to build that sense of community among other educators that you could reach out to for some help. So with that being said, we are formally going to stop the recording at this point. We are going to hang out and take any questions that have been generated from the group, and we will type those up into a formal FAQ document that will then be attached in that educator resources folder. So don't think you're missing anything since the recording ends, but we are going to capture those thoughts. But just that way, it's if some people need to jump off, you can still get the information.